completely neutral. I'm like, he does not have a left arm. He's doing the same thing. Cheat outside, he's not beating you inside. But there were a couple tackles he made in that game, legitimately like all right armed, and his left arm he's just like holding out to his side. I'm like, this dude is a freak.
Yeah.
An
I
alien.
think you could argue the fumble you guys got back at the bottom of the pile, that was
because he had one
recovered
arm.
by Carter.
Because he has one arm.
If he had two arms, you don't get that ball.
Yes. 100%.
Like, I know Jeremiah Love was impressive too, especially the hurdle. But I think most impressive of the night had to go to Abdul Carter because he was
100%.
literally playing with one arm.
100%.
And just, I'm watching him line up and just repeatedly spank
Wrecking
those
games.
linemen. I'm just like,
Wrecking games.
This guy is a god. Whatever NFL team gets him is getting a superstar. And I think he's fitting to be a 4-3 or a 3-4 in the NFL. I think you're getting a versatile piece, and he absolutely should be top 5.
Well, there was like one play too where like Leonard scrambled right, and all year, even against Georgia, he was hitting the crease there, and Carter just ran him down, and he had to throw it away because he had no edge.
Didn't they spy Leonard the one time with Carter?
A couple times.
He limited the game just like a couple yards versus
there was a couple times where he would
that.
He would line up to rush, and he would just kind of drop back and sit there. And I don't know if that was like a game plan thing, or if they're like, look, we're going to have you do this just to kind of limit the amount of contact you're taking. But
I'm so impressed with the both of them. Yeah, so impressed with both of them. But yeah, my thought at halftime, I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, probably got to be going to bed early because I think this game's about to get ugly.
I tweeted, I'm like, Penn State literally should not throw the ball in the second half because they were falling forward and getting 6 yards a carry.
Well, how fitting it is at the end of the game came down to a dumbass throw, but that opening drive changed everything, man. No, Freeman, whatever he said at halftime and whatever the leaders of that team said at halftime, it changed everything. And when Notre Dame went right down the field with that first drive, I'm just like, this is a game now. I know they tied it, but I'm just like, I completely lost faith in Penn State that I had at halftime.
Yeah. Well, so we got the halftime. It wasn't the full halftime speech, but we got the halftime speech. They put out the video, and it was electric. I'm gonna go watch it again when we're done. But
you have to send it to me.
There were a couple key play. If I'm a Penn State fan, I'm sick from this game because they had so many opportunities to win. And there's so many key points throughout this game that if you point and you look at them and they go the opposite way, Penn State probably wins this game. And the one that stood out to me early, Clinton, was that first touchdown or the first scoring drive for Penn State when it was end of the first quarter, moving into the second quarter. They're driving down the field, again, running the ball at will. Their second and goal play, Katron Allen gets tripped up in the backfield. I think they lost a yard. And then they come out to start the second quarter. A beautifully designed play gets Nick Singleton alone in the flat. And it wasn't a good throw. It still should have been caught. Aller throws it behind him. It gets dropped. It was a walk-in touchdown. It's 4th and goal at the 2. And instead of going for it, James Franklin opts to kick a field goal. And at that moment in time, I'm sitting there thinking, I cannot even fathom the shot in the arm this is for Notre Dame because, one, it signifies that the dude's probably coaching a little scared. I'm maybe not scared, but he's not coaching aggressive because I get you have faith in your defense. Let's get the points. But also, if you don't score here, they have to go 95 or 98 yards, and there's no way they're doing that. Go for the touchdown. Go for the kill shot. If Penn State scored a touchdown there, it's 14-0 then. I think Notre Dame probably rolls over and dies. But you hold them to a field goal, and I mean, that ends up being the difference in the game right there, right? It was a 3-point win for Notre Dame. You get a touchdown there. And I don't even know that Notre Dame comes back if they're down 14-3 going into half, to be completely honest with you. But then you touch on that last drive before halftime. So Riley Leonard has him moving the ball a little bit. He gets knocked out, and Steve Angeli comes in, cold off the bench, and he threw the ball well, man. Those first couple of plays, like, he was making good, quick, decisive throws. They're moving the ball down the field, but there are a couple plays on that drive that illustrated why Steve Angeli has not been the quarterback for Notre Dame this year. Is his pocket presence isn't great, and he's not particularly mobile in the pocket. So gets hit blindside. I don't remember who was the sack. I don't remember if it was Vanover or Dennis Sutton who had the strip sack, but the ball like bounces forward 7 yards, lands at Abdul Carter's feet. He falls on it, but he has one arm, so he's only using his right arm to corral it. And then I think it was Billy Schrouth jumped in and got the ball back. Somehow, some way. Because I flipped my phone up in the air. I'm like, great, this game is over. And I'm like, oh, shit, they got the ball back. They drive down, they get a field goal, and despite getting pushed around, ass kicked, mollywopped, whatever adjective you want to use for 30 minutes, it's a 7-point game at halftime, and you get the ball to start the second half. So you had a chance. Like, as bleak as things looked at that time, you have a chance to come out of the half and tie this game up, and that's what they did. And I don't know what their plan with Love was in this game, because in the first half, and I don't know how much of this was just the effect of, like, they didn't really have a lot going, so they weren't running. They got, like, time of possession in the first half was like 2-1 Penn State almost. But in the first half, Luff only had 3 carries for 10 yards. And the first 3 plays of the second half, he had 3 carries for 24 yards. So I don't know if at halftime they're like, you know what, screw it. We're just going to let this guy give us all he has and then go from there. And if he gets hurt, he gets hurt. But they came out. They ran the ball well. You touched on it. Leonard passed his concussion protocol at halftime, so he came back in. And I think that seam shot that he threw to the backup running back, Aeneas Williams, I think that settled a lot of nerves, because it lets you know, okay, this guy's in the game now. He's making passes, and he's okay. Like, his head's not, he doesn't have scrambled egg brain or anything like that.
Yep.
And then it was just back and forth from there, man. Like, the momentum swing, I don't know if you saw, like, a picture of, like, the ESPN win probability. It just kept going, like, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And both teams traded chances. There were multiple points in this game that I thought, oh, yeah, they're screwed. Oh, yeah, they're screwed. Oh, yeah, they're screwed. And the final time I thought Notre Dame was screwed was about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Riley Leonard second interception to deny Dennis Sutton in coverage. I thought that was the catastrophic mistake in this game, Clinton. That's what I thought was going to be.
I think we both might have tweeted that at the exact same time from the same account, or very similar, because I'm pretty sure I tweeted out, is that the catastrophic mistake that Ryan and I talked about on the show? And I thought it was done. And then is that when Penn State then proceeded to go down the field?
Yeah, they had the ball at like the 30-yard line.
And then they got that
then
clearly great offensive, or that clearly pass interference call that was great.
Just a fantastic call. Just a fantastic call.
On that call, here's my beef with the refs. I understand your point. He didn't look at the ball. He didn't make a ton of contact. So purely you're calling it on he wasn't looking at the ball. However, you've kind of let them play to this point of the game. Please do not stick your nose in the game in the fourth quarter with a call like that. And here's the other piece. He wasn't catching the ball anyways. It was intercepted. It was an underthrown ball.
It was
like, it wasn't so egregiously underthrown that, you know, it's one of those ones where you can't call it because it's not catchable. Like, in theory it is. But that was picked regardless. And then obviously that gives Penn State the touchdown that I think everybody in South Bend is like, well, that might ice the game, and that's the way we have to go out on.
100%.
Like, that doesn't seem
That's what
fair.
I thought. I thought that we were going to be going. We were doing a surprise live post-game show where I ranted about that call for 10 minutes. But, like, it's not even like that call. It was like the flag, and you can see it, like, because they do. It's not just like the halftime. They put like the mashup of the highlights, and like you can see from the angle that they showed that call, the flag was thrown like 5 seconds after the fact from the back judge who's like 25 yards away from the play. Like, what the fuck are you looking at, dude? Get your head out of your fucking ass. This is the same crew that did the Sugar Bowl, and they were ass in that game, too. I don't know how these guys got playoff assignments because they were awful.
Ohio State pretty much drew the same crew. They've had the same crew for all 3 games.
It was just not...
So the vibe is they will not get the ACC crew for this game because since Notre Dame is so closely affiliated with the ACC, they won't draw the same crew.
Is there going to be SEC refs?
We're going to get a freaking SEC group.
Is it going to be Big 12? If it's the same Big 12 crew, I'm not even watching the game.
It's
going to end on some dumbass call.
You're gonna get an SEC crew, which I don't know if that's better one way or the other for us because they're all going to be pissed off that they're not in the game. And Ohio State has eliminated 2 SEC teams, and Notre Dame's only done 1, so Notre Dame might get the advantage in that one. But together, our teams are 3-0 and knocking out the SEC.
Knocked out all 3 SEC teams.
If you're the back to the next drive for Notre Dame, if you are, I don't know who it was, the Penn State corner that slipped and fell.
Oh, boy.
Oh, dear God. Well, he slipped and fell, but there was one guy left.
And
Make a
then,
damn tackle.
and then he had his ankle stolen as well.
Make an open field tackle. Who made the catch on that? Was that Greathouse?
That was Greathouse.
That's what I thought.
That was the first 100-yard game by a Notre Dame receiver since, I think, Faison in the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl last year.
Nice. And it just, when he's wide open, I was like, holy shit, what happened? Like,
Oh,
who
same.
blew the coverage? And then they
'cause
showed the replay, and I'm like, oh, that poor kid.
Well, because
That
I'm
poor
like,
kid.
I've been conditioned this year that whenever Riley Leonard throws it deep, I'm like, oh my God, is there a safety right there? And then the camera panned over and it was just a white jersey. I'm like, what happened?
And here's the great thing. He hit the pass.
It was a beautiful throw.
Because sometimes when guys are that wide open, you try to be too perfect with the ball. At that point, you just throw it to the open guy. You don't need to lead him. Nothing. Just throw the damn ball to him. Let him make the play and see what happens. And he did, and he scored.
And, you know, we talked a little bit about this too when I decided to get serious and say the team that wins this game will be the one that doesn't make the dumbass mistake. We talked who's going to get contributions out wide in this game, because for Penn State, we know what they have in Tyler Warren and the receivers. For Notre Dame, we know what they have in the running backs. Jaden Greathouse goes for 100 yards. We got a couple catches from Faison as well. Penn State had no catches from a wide receiver. The Penn State receivers finished with 0 catches for -3 yards because Trey Wallace got dinged for -3 yards on that last lateral play.
Ryan.
They somehow had that. Clinton, you and I had more yards receiving than Penn State did in that game.
I was going to say, we had as many catches as they did.
Yes. No contributions out wide. And, I think sometimes when we're talking about these games, we get stuck in the not properly contextualizing that there's two teams playing a game, right? It's not just one team making mistakes. Like sometimes what the other team does to you affects that. And Notre Dame's pass defense has been very good this year. That certainly played a role in this. But like, they weren't running good routes in this game. I don't know what the hell happened on that last interception. I don't know if his was just.
I have the words right here if you'd like to know. To quickly summarize, and I heard a little bit of video on it. It was Mr. Aller. Aller explained he saw the first two options covered on the play. Then he wanted to throw the ball into the dirt. But the throw under pressure and across his body didn't have enough zip on it to reach either receiver Omari Evans or the ground before Gray slid end. Honestly, to quote Aller here, honestly, I was trying to dirt it at his feet, said the junior quarterback. I should have thrown it away when I saw the first two progressions were not open, and I didn't execute. So, one piece here, he owns it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a bold move there. That's elite level stuff. That's a leader of your team. Also, Drew Aller, the pass was like 15 yards down the feet. Why the hell are you trying to throw the ball at someone's feet all the way
from
down?
there? I don't. If like
I'd rather if you had thrown it in the ground right there, and if you had to take an intentional grounding.
Yeah, just throw it at your lineman's ass or something like that.
You don't throw that up across the field like that.
No, you don't across your body across the field. That was like Greg McElroy was incredulous on the talking through the replay, and I don't blame him. That was just a bad throw.
It was, dude. And just for a guy who is known to make such good decisions, that was a horrifically bad one, and it cost you the game. Now, Notre Dame had to make the game-winning field goal. It wasn't like this was walking out Mike Nugent from the early 2000s Ohio States or Robert Aguayo from Florida State. Like, this has been a kicker who's been kind of spotty. You don't know if the game's truly over. But damn, I was fine being aggressive there. And my brother-in-law and I texted at that time, and he's like, if I'm Penn State here, I'm running, I'm going to overtime. And my thought always that is, like, you've got however many seconds. Do you want to run that risk on a team that has taken the momentum from you in a way in the second half compared to the first half? Do you want to go against a team where you're both kind of run-oriented, but Riley Leonard is the better QB runner, and then play that short field game? If this comes down to a two-point fest, I'm giving Notre Dame the advantage because they have Love, Price, and Leonard who can run. Drew Aller's not going to be that big of a threat to take off and get 5, 6, 7, 8 yards for you. So I'm fine being aggressive, but he's exactly right. You make your first two reads. It's not there. Get rid of the ball. Live to play another down. And if it doesn't work, go to overtime.
Yeah, it's not like
you cannot give them the ball.
It's not like you were down a point and you needed to get the ball downfield.
No.
Like, you had overtime in your back pocket. Like, that's not a bad outcome.
Katron Allen and Nicholas Singleton, who have ran the ball well all game.
Well, like, the first play of that drive, they ran for 15 yards, and I'm like, oh, fuck, these guys are going to get in field goal range just by running it here. And then that happened, and I
So I
was
mean,
happy.
you essentially look at it. It was two crucial plays, right? The
Hmm.
Penn State cornerback slipping and falling, and
Yep.
the Aller INT late. You know, Aller's performance overall wasn't really great even in the first half. This is one of his
Hmm.
worst games, I would say, and not being a Penn State fan to fully evaluate that, not watching every second of every game, but that had to be one of his worst games. But you had no completions to wide receivers, and that again goes to tell me that your receivers stink. This guy
Hmm.
has nothing to work with other than Tyler
Hmm.
Warren, who is now gone. We'll see what happens with the running backs. And then the next thing I wanted to cover, the Penn State perception, which is how you
Yeah, we can
always
talk
say,
about that
Ryan,
next.
the goalposts move.
Yes.
So they beat SMU and they beat Boise State.
Hmm.
However, immediately after the game, ESPN is all over it like a fly on horse shit.
Oh, it was all over,
It
like
was
the
everywhere,
morning
other
talk
than Penn
shows.
State fans. It was everywhere. I saw it
I
over the
was.
next morning.
Hmm.
If Franklin lost the big game again, he can't win the big game. Dude, he won 2 playoff games. You can't get bigger than making the 12-team playoff and winning 2 games.
Hmm.
He won one at
Hmm.
home. Then he went
Hmm.
across the country to essentially play what was probably a semi-home game for Boise, given the amount of crowd that was there.
Yep.
And then you just had a few things not go your way against Notre Dame. If Penn State beats Notre Dame, Ryan, and goes in and gets beat by 15 to Ohio State in the Natty, are we saying the same narrative? Where we're going to call Notre Dame not a big win? Is that what they were going to argue? Like, at some point, where can this guy get ahead? Like, if you're just going to continue to move that goalpost on him, then what is a big win? What is a big win for him? He won 2 playoff games. The national narrative is to get off of his ass. He's fine. He's a great coach. Aller's coming back next year because there ain't no way in hell he's going pro after that game.
Yep.
He showed that he still has a ton of work on certain throws to make that he needs a lot of improvement with. But I don't know, man. It just the narrative on Franklin. I'm just like, back off of this guy. He played 2 big wins. Give him a break.
Yeah, I don't know what. Because it's not like they lost that game because of coaching decisions.
No.
Like, if you were to point at anything, maybe you would point at the first field goal and maybe you should have gone for it. But also, like, I don't think that I hated the call
No. At that point, you're
from a
getting
Penn State fan. Like,
strike
I
first
liked it.
blood.
I liked it from my perspective because I thought if Penn State scored a touchdown there, we were screwed.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I got I understand you think that this is going to be we need to take the points whenever we can get them game because
Might
we don't
need
know
it
how many
late.
scoring opportunities that we're going to
Yep.
have.
As we predicted, which didn't quite go our way, points would be at a premium. And at that point, it's looking like it's going to be a 13-10 final. So you need the 3. Take what you get. And I don't know, man. I just the narrative's kind of wearing on me with him. I think he's a great coach. I think he did a hell of a job this year. I think Penn State's going to be great next year. Now they're losing Carter, which is massive. Even as good as Denai Sutton is, if he is back, I don't think he can touch what Abdul Carter just did.
That'd be hard to do.
Could you
That would-
imagine if Carter got to play that position for 2 years at Penn State versus just moving from linebacker to there?
Oh, for sure. He's going to be really good at
He'd
that.
be the number 1 pick. James Pierce. At this point, give me Abdul Carter over James Pierce.
I'd agree with that. I'd agree with that 100%. He should be the first.
At least
I'm
Abdul
not.
Carter showed up in his playoff games.
Also true.
James Pierce never got off the bus.
Also true. Also true. But it's also one of those things too, right? That like the narrative on him isn't going to change until he does it.
Mm-hmm.
Like until he beats, and that was part of like my perspective on this is always going to be the Notre Dame perspective because that's what I choose to immerse myself in from like an external media standpoint. And like even when Notre Dame beat Indiana in the first round, like people who cover the program were like, this is a good win, but it's not enough because you're not going to get that monkey off of your back until you beat like a Georgia type team in the postseason. Like this is going to follow you until you do this. And I think both things can be true at the same time. You can sit here and say this was an exceptionally successful season for Penn State. They played for the Big Ten title. They won 2 playoff games. They hosted a playoff game. And you made it to the Final Four. Like, no one can take that away from you. You get, I get, like, you know, people, assholes on Twitter, are going to make the Final Four, hang the banner, blah, blah, blah. Like, you made it to the Final Four. There are very few programs over, like, in this era that can say that. Like, how many teams have made it to the Final Four? Like, 10? 12? You're now in that echelon over the last 10 years of teams who have made it to the Final Four of the college football playoff. Yep. But the other side of that coin is you didn't exactly have the toughest draw to get here. You lost the 3 toughest games you played this year. Like, both those things can be true at the same time. So it's like it can be a successful season, but it can also leave you wanting more. Like, I think
a
both
little bit of a
things can
bitter
be true
taste
at the
in
same
your
time.
mouth.
Right. Like
it was so close. And I think what stings more is we've already said it. You thought you were about to obliterate Notre Dame in the second half if you're a Penn State fan. You're like, this game is over. They're not going to move the ball on us, and we're just going to run it down their throats. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I don't remember what podcast it was that I was listening to the last 2 days, but the point was like, with Penn State, we're in the same spot that we were with them 12 months ago. Like, they didn't go backwards and they didn't go forwards. They're just, like, there still. Like, really good team in that, like, 5 to 10 range, but still can't beat top 5 teams. Or still haven't shown that they can.
I think I'd give them a little step forward. I think I feel better about Penn State now than I did last year. With James Franklin, I did read the stat. He's 4-20 in AP top 10 games. That is tough.
That is tough.
Numbers do not lie. However, that does not take away anything that he's accomplished. So
no, I would agree with that too. And like, I know like early in our podcast tenure over the summer, I was pretty hard on Penn State and said some not nice things about them. But like, I mean, they showed out. They made it to the semifinals, and they deserve credit for that.
Yep. And then you met Matt Flip, and he flipped your opinion.
Oh yeah, I mean, always down to talk with Matt Flip. But yeah, anything else you want to touch on this game? I figure most of our big Notre Dame takeaways can be saved for whenever we do our preview and or recap the national title game.
Yeah,
because there's still,
it was a hell of a game.
Still,
I enjoyed it, every second of it. I loved it.
I did not enjoy every second of it. In fact, I probably hated most of it, and I think it might have taken 5 years off my life. But
well, then our next game, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, who suffered such a traumatic snowstorm before this game. That
there was a lot of snow, man. There was a lot of snow.
There was a fair amount. That place was full, though. Everybody got where they needed to be. I get it. Dallas is not prepared for all of this. Anyways, Ohio State, Texas, 28-14. What a game it was. Ryan, I've got a couple things noted here, but since you are the non-Ohio State fan, I want your thoughts on the game first.
I mean, it started kind of like the last 2 playoff games did, and I thought that, I'm like, great, here we go again. Ohio State's going to beat the crap out of another team, but I don't know if like Ohio State's their own worst enemy or like what the deal with that team is, but it just seems like they get in their own way a lot. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we already kind of talked about most of my things that I wanted to touch on beforehand anyway, but I think we talked a little bit before this game that if there's a defense in this country that can slow down Ohio State, it would be Texas. They have an incredible secondary. They have a great front seven, just loaded all over the defense. They have athletes that can match your speed. And for the most part throughout this game, they did that. I mean, you had the first drive of the game where Ohio State made it look easy. And I get they were moving the ball still. Penalties were kind of the biggest reason that this game wasn't a little bit more out of hand. But Texas defense clamped down. I mean, you had, I don't know, like, what the hell were they doing on that screenplay?
Oh, we'll get to that.
I don't understand that defensive call at all. It's like, there's like, what, 30 seconds left in the half?
29.
You're playing prevent there on a screen?
So there was a mix. They played prevent, but they also blitzed a corner who would have been sitting in the area.
What are you cornerback blitzing for with 25 seconds left in the half?
So, yes, they dropped so many people deep, but then they blitzed the corner, who essentially, now again, might have gotten road graded by the O-lineman. I don't know. But blitzed right where Henderson essentially sat. And
the lineman had no one to block!
That's what I mean. They got to run down the field for 20 yards before they got to touch someone. And at that point, Travion Henderson is a track star, and he's in the open field.
Well, also, that force is mass times acceleration. That's a lot of mass that is accelerating at a high rate of speed towards people who are not that big.
Yep.
I would not want to be the safeties downfield there
Well, of course, because you're not. It's not like you're stacking 3 linebackers on the field at that time.
No,
A bunch of DBs on the field. And these linemen never get a chance to sprint full speed and kill somebody, and they're just licking their chops like, "Who am I going to kill?"
Oh my God!
And at the same time, while you're those DBs shitting your pants, Travion Henderson hits the speed burst button, and then it's touchdown city.
Oh my gosh! I want to going back to the ND game real quick. When they after Spindler hurt his ankle and they brought back in Jagusa, who did we say this on the show?
Jagusa? I thought it was
Jagusa.
Yeah.
I don't know. The season for Notre Dame has been so long that there's preseason starting left tackle who tore his pec in the third spring practice and was presumably lost for the season, is now playing football again. There was a couple like pulling blocks that he had in this game where he absolutely annihilated the dude that was pulling, and I'm like, that's what we could have had all season. I bet that felt good for him, thinking that he wasn't going to get a play this year. But
absolutely,
I digress.
Testing that new pec.
Yes.
I'm looking at the first half, and I was the same way as you, Ryan. I thought Ohio State comes out. First of all, they won the toss, and they decided to play defense. And what was one of my last points was, what happens if Ohio State doesn't start fast or Penn State? And I was kind of leading to, what if they don't get the ball first? What happens? Well, they have the chance to do it, and they decide to play defense, and they stop Texas right away. They score. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm like, this is going to kind of go our way. Just on the first drive, you could see Texas's O-line had a ton of trouble with Ohio State's D-line in their pass rush. Then we come out, and the next 3 straight offensive drives were all ruined by penalties. Travion Henderson headbutts a lineman after the play, 15-yard penalty, ruins the drive. Next drive, Quinshad Judkins, I believe, pops off a double-digit run. Fryer, holding penalty, ruins the drive. Next drive, can't exactly remember what happens, but Gee Scott Jr., penalty, holding, ruins the drive. That's kind of the story of the night, right? And this game was just one of those penalties away. And if it would have been maybe that next drive they had the ball that Henderson got the headbutt on, it's 14-0. And then everybody's starting to think, oh no, here it goes again. Because they're going to take the momentum. But they shot themselves in the foot time and time again in the first half. This game stayed close. And then Texas hits the running back out of the backfield because for some ungodly reason, we just didn't cover him. And Jim Knowles spoke post-game, because this happened a second time later in the game. They got him again, that he was being too aggressive and just essentially didn't cover the back because he brought too many people. And I know Sonny Styles was on him the one time, but I think at that point it was because they were overly aggressive. He already started behind the 8 ball and he got cooked. Whereas the other time, the other guy was just that wide open. And then you end the half with the Henderson score. And like, holy cow, we just stole the entire momentum back from them. And we get the ball to start the second half. And my one piece that I thought in that first half, as good as Will Howard played in the first half with that not cyst whatever looking thing on his back of his left hand.
So gross.
First of all, I thought they might try to drain it at halftime, but they clearly did not because it was up there on the podium. But then risk for infection, I'm sure, is in there. But
this man gets ringworm or something like that.
So Howard's just delivering darts, right? But the windows he's throwing in are extremely tight because Texas plays great zone defense. But Howard's just dealing. And I'm like, this dude's going to get picked because he's been close about 3 times already. He is feeling himself, and I get it. But, buddy, those are C.J. Stroud-type windows you're trying to put that ball in, and you're not C.J. Stroud. And then he gets nailed on the freaking first drive of the second half. He throws a pick, and I'm like, here we go. We're in trouble now. And then, it's essentially a back-and-forth game. When Texas ties it, it's 14-all, and I think Ohio State, they won the fourth quarter as far as points because it was 14-0. They outscored them. But Texas won the third quarter. And in a way, neither team won that middle 8 that we talk about, but they kind of split it, right? And so Texas scores the only points in the third quarter. And Ohio State, we get into the fourth quarter. Ohio State's defense continues to make plays. When we get finally to the drive that Ohio, I mean, real quick, Quinn Ewers' play where he just like blindly tosses it up to the running back when his knee is just a
Oh, that was insane.
piece of
That
turf
was
from the
insane.
ground, like length. Like, what a play. What a play. And they score on that drive, right? That's what ties it at 14 all.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sitting here thinking, like, if they win the game, that's the play of the game, right? Like, he survived that play. It should have been fourth down, and he makes the play. So then Ohio State gets the ball back later, and they're driving down the field, and it's, I believe, 3rd and 3. And what happens? We get another damn penalty, and it moves us to 3rd and 8, I believe. And then they throw out the pass out to Gee Scott, and he fights and gets them down to a 4th and 2. The effort that he had, that is such an overlooked play because he fought so hard between two defenders to get himself close enough to get the 4th and 2. And then we get the funniest play of the game now, and it's only funny because they won. But Will Howard runs a quarterback power, which was so wide open because Texas didn't anticipate it at all.
Yep.
Like, the Red Sea parted. It was like he was Jesus Christ himself running through that. I'm sorry, it was Moses who parted the Red Sea. Excuse me. It was like he was Moses himself, parted the Red Sea, and he's just like, holy shit, there's an end zone. Chugga, 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 trip. I'm like, dude, the 20-yard line got him. The next morning, Elliot got up, and I asked him if he wanted to rewatch the end of the game, and he said, yeah. And I was like, well, watch this, buddy. This is a really funny play. He gets tripped by the turf monster, and he goes, what's a turf monster, Daddy? And I was like, well, you're just running free, and then the grass just decides to trip you. And we watched it on replay like 3 times, just laughing. But in hindsight, it kind of works out a little bit for Ohio State that happened because you got to work more clock.
Mm-hmm.
You got a little more clock off that you didn't think about it at the time until we scored. But then Judkins punches it in, and then it's the next drive that essentially Texas marches right back down the field, making great plays again by Quinn Ewers. I believe they hit Matt Golden on a great pass on that drive to get them in that position. And then to the fun part, Ryan. They enter the inside of the 5-yard line. First play, pass interference. Now it goes to the 2-yard line. Next play, pass interference. Now it goes to the 1-yard line. 1st and goal. And I'm sitting here thinking, they're definitely scoring. Now they only have 1 yard to get. So, Ryan, what does Texas decide to do against the country's best red zone defense? Run it right up to gut. They embodied Ohio State very well against Michigan on that play. Like, you're not winning there. You haven't won up the gut all day. And then they have all their beef in, and you run it right at them. So then you get stuffed. And then you come up with the genius idea to let's run a toss play to the outside when Caleb Downs lives on that defense. He reads it perfectly. He has no assignments other than just essentially see ball, get ball. And he trips the kid up, and then Ransom and I believe Hancock come in to finish the tackle. But Caleb Downs blows that play up.
That's going to live in Texas's nightmares for
I would say more the fans, right? Like I listened to Joel Klatt, and he had a good point. Texas studied the film well, right? Well, to an extent, because maybe they shouldn't have ran it up the gut on the first play. But how Ohio State stopped Oregon, they stopped Nebraska, and they stopped... I'm missing one here. There was another one. Anyways, 3 different times this year. Penn State. Penn State had 4 straight plays and ran it up the gut all 4 times. They couldn't score on Ohio State from the 2-yard line. So Texas learned from that. So, like, let's try a toss play. Not that we agree that they ran it, but they're like, let's try something different. But it's a play, though, that, Ryan, that you're at the 1-yard line, 2-yard line, if they lost the yard in the first play, that you're now pitching the ball and you're already starting 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
So now, not only are you behind, you have to gain all that back, plus get to the edge and score against a defense that is just as fast, if not faster than you because of their athletes, let alone one athlete in particular named Caleb Downs who lives on that defense. And you played against him last year in Alabama. You know what kind of playmaker he is. And they blow it up. So then 3rd down comes. Jack Sawyer tips the pass. He's affecting Quinn Ewers again, as he had all night, his former roommate, which we found out. That's pretty cool. And then the 4th down. What a play, baby. Jack Sawyer off the side. Quinn doesn't see him coming. He strip sacks him. The ball bounces right into his hands. It's like Christmas came again. What a gift. And he's chug-a-lugging down the sidelines. And I'm looking at this dude. I'm like, buddy, you better turn on some afterburners because you are not fast enough to score this touchdown. And I watched Sonny Styles cut off their running back. I'm like, all right, I think he's safe now. Now I'm sitting here just thinking, please hold on to the ball as you cross the goal line. Don't do anything stupid that then cost you this touchdown. And he scores, essentially seals the game. What a way to end the game. And I said before the show, that rivals me as a young kid in 2002, the 2003 National Championship, watching Maurice Claret rip the ball out of Willis McGahee's hands that then flipped the game in Ohio State's favor and they won the game. Jack Sawyer will live forever as an Ohio State hero, especially if they win the national championship. Because that play, I don't know what would have happened if Jack doesn't get there. Maybe Quinn finds the guy and ties the game. I don't know, but I don't think I've ever been fully erect during a football game, and it might have happened during that time frame. I don't know. It was pretty crazy.
Jesus criminy.
My excitement meter was pretty high. We'll just leave it at that. It is what an ending. What a game. Ohio State did not play a perfect game. They are going to need to play cleaner than that to beat Notre Dame. You have already said it. If Ohio State plays their A game, it's a double-digit win. I don't think even Notre Dame fans would not argue that.
Yeah, I mean, there
are some on the just internet. Like there are Ohio State fans. I've already seen it. But if Ohio State plays an A game, especially an A-plus game, you're going to get waxed. And I mean no disrespect to that.
Mm-hmm. No, sure.
If Ohio State comes out and has a penalty-laden game the way they just did, it's going to be another fourth-quarter game. And you're going to have to earn it. The one thing you don't want to do that Penn State did is let the Notre Dame team get confidence. Let them get momentum. Mm-hmm. Because when momentum is taken from you, it is so hard to take it back. And I have complete faith that Ohio State's defense will be just fine against Notre Dame. I'm not going to say Notre Dame won't make plays. The biggest pause I have, and again, we'll talk about this when we do our preview show, is the offense. And which offense and which offensive play calling is going to come play this game. Mm-hmm. Now, again, Ryan, you'll study this and figure this out before we get to our preview. And we can talk to Jack about this, who we have coming on the show Thursday night, guys. Do you expect Notre Dame to stick more to their man, or are they going to try to do what Texas and Michigan did and play zone with some safety shading over to Jeremiah Smith to take him out of the game?
I have no idea.
Because really I certainly feel, I know you've said their pass defense has been great all year. Without Benjamin, someone tweeted at me when I made a comment, well, we held Harrison and these guys last year, and I'm like, but you have Benjamin Morrison.
Well, so like the issue is like I think Leonard Moore can hold up well with whoever he's covering. The issue, like the way they run their defense is it's not going to be like they're going to make Leonard Moore shadow Jeremiah Smith because they're assigned to a side of the field. Like they one plays the field, one plays the boundary, and they don't mix that up because the assignments for each are different. And I think like there's certainly the issue with it is like you've done it for so long, you can't like change your entire scheme in 8 days.
I agree.
But Al Golden is a mad scientist. I'm sure he's going to cook up something crazy as long as it's not a double safety blitz that leaves what's his face in the end zone wide open.
Yeah.
Xavier Johnson.
Oh God.
From 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I truly don't know. Like I think it's going to be mostly man. I think they're probably going to shade Watts or Schuler over on Smith, because that's kind of sort of the cover one that they run. Like they'll usually run like one high safety and then have kind of a linebacker shade in the middle of the field. So it's going to be some version of that, and I'm sure they'll mix looks up. And I don't know. I'm not into the weeds on X's and O's, so that's pretty much all I could tell you.
I mean, it's an interesting strategy from 2 points, right? You got to play what got you there. Now, you should make some adjustments. Maybe Notre Dame, if they play 75% man all year, maybe they play only 65% in this game. Maybe they touch
it's the last game too, zone. Right? Like if you anything in the bag at this point,
but then you worry on the other side, right? Like if you run what your guys aren't as familiar running with, and you try to put too much of it, Ohio State literally just went against it with the most athletic team they've played all year. against on defense, then you put yourself in a bind. Because if Ohio State finds a way to expose your zone a few times and gets a big play out of it, now you're behind the 8 ball. Or maybe you try it a few times and Will Howard gives you a gift. That's also certainly a possibility.
Well, that's the other key too, is like, if it's a situation where Notre Dame can only rush 4 because they're needing to divest more of that to the secondary to covering the receivers, I don't think they're going to have much success defending in this game because they're not going to be able to get pressure with their front 4 with what's left. Like, you're down your 2 best rush ends, you're down your best rusher at defensive tackle, and Howard Cross is playing with 1 leg. Like, you don't have the ammunition on the defensive line to get home with 4 in this one, so you're going to have to get creative with their blitzes, and they've done that for the most part. And I mean, they had Gunnar Stockton made a couple of big throws in the Sugar Bowl, but they hit him hard a couple of times.
Yep.
And they had Drew Aller in hell for most of that game. Even, I mean, they didn't, not as much the first half because they weren't having to throw it as much, but the second half they had Drew Aller in hell. And I think with Will Howard, if you can get some hits on him early, if you can kind of get him to question his own decision making, question his own eyes, question his mind, saying, am I seeing what I'm really seeing here? Then I think you can have a little bit more success because you're slowing down his processing enough that even if he has a play, he's doubting himself or he's not seeing it right away. And then maybe you can get home or get him to throw it away.
Well, I have one piece for Ohio State then. Run some additional screen passes, please.
Yep.
So I watched the post game, or no, I think it was from today, the interview with Ryan Day, and they talked about the screen pass. And he said they work screen pass scenarios all the time in practice. And it got to the point where he essentially told Chip Kelly to stop practicing the damn screen pass stuff because we never utilize it in the game. And so he said it gets to the game, and they're in that scenario with 29 seconds left, and Chip calls down. He says, what do you think here? And he says, and Chip's like, what do you think about the screen? He goes, absolutely, let's do it. And then it's a fucking house call.
No, I like it because it's such like a low risk play call there because you don't anticipate that getting intercepted unless something catastrophic happens.
Yes.
And
At worst, you get tackled for what, 2-yard loss?
And then you just go into half.
Yep. And that's the same thing in this scenario. If Notre Dame is going to go blitzkrieg on you and you want to do it, okay, then fine. Somebody makes a play and tackles Henderson for a 2-yard loss. That's fine. It's better than trying to force something into a window that's not there or getting a tip ball. But kind of my last piece, because I don't want to go into it too much before we actually get to talk to hopefully our people this week and preview it ourselves, is my biggest question for Notre Dame is the D-line and the O-line depth, and more so thinking the D-line, right? Like, Ohio State is not as good of a running team as Penn State. I think that's evident. But when you're Notre Dame and you're down the pieces that you've already said they're down, and so your depth is already challenged, to now go another 4-quarter game potentially with a team that has shown the ability to run the ball, especially late when they need to, it's going to be tough, right? Like, that's my one piece. And I'm not trying to say that to piss off any of the Notre Dame fans who listen, because there is no part of me in these next week, essentially, that I'm going to sit here and dog Notre Dame. I think this is going to be an incredible challenge for Ohio State. I think it's going to be an incredible challenge for Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a great game. I hope it's a great game that hopefully that my team comes out on top of. But it does concern me in watching this game that if this game comes down to a late third quarter, fourth quarter battle, that just that attrition finally catches up, right? Like, if you don't get the lucky bounce that goes your way, or the Will Howard pass that's intercepted, and or Ohio State shooting themselves in the foot with penalties, can Notre Dame sustain another 4-quarter game of the trenches and be able to survive? Because I have watched this Ohio State team, as have you, and I'm telling you what, I've never seen a D-line play so good since I've watched Ohio State. And that's even the Chase Young days, because Chase Young was just a one-man wrecking crew. But if I look across the front 4 as a unit and their depth guys playing behind them, Notre Dame's offensive line is going to have a massive challenge with Ohio State's D-line. Now, Riley Leonard is the equalizer in that, because if you over-pursue, he's going to make you pay. So it's interesting, man. I'm going to try to listen my ass off the podcast this week from the Ohio State side to get as much additional insight as I can. We're working on trying to get our guy Spencer Holbrook from Letterman Row to join us, but for all these beat writers, or well, for the ones that are in the Natty, this is an incredibly busy week. They've got a ton of stuff going on. I'm gracious that Jack has agreed to come on Thursday evening. I think we're looking at, I forget what I said with Spencer. I think Tuesday night we're trying to fit it in, and we'll do our best if Spencer can't to maybe try to tie in another Ohio State guy. But incredibly busy week for them, and again, just appreciative that Jack will have at least his insight on here with us.
I think a fun subplot to this game is the way last year's game ended.
Yes, Marcus Freeman's come a long way.
Yeah, for sure. But like, do you remember? Of course, you remember when the 2012 Clemson game happened to Ohio State, and then going into 2020, and all the talk was about we want to avenge what happened last year, and then they beat the shit out of Clemson. I think, and Freeman said today we're not using it as motivation, but I think internally they're talking about we want to right the wrong of last year.
It's not even that. It's the 2 years before that.
Well,
the two times you played them.
2022 they had no chance. 2022 they had no chance. I think last year they felt like they were the better team. They should have won that game, and they lost it because the coaching staff let them down by not having 11 guys on the field.
Certainly.
So I think there's
like timeout.
And I get. I don't know if they had. Didn't they? I don't think they had
one. I think they had one. He left it in his pocket.
I don't
Go back and check it, but I'm pretty sure that was part of the knock in his press conferences. Why didn't you call a timeout?
I don't think they had a timeout. I think they didn't have a. I don't think they No, they definitely didn't have a timeout because they didn't figure it out until they were lined up, so they couldn't call. They couldn't stop it, and he couldn't get a signal to the players that hey, jump off sides. Because that was the conversation. Is like this is our process for this now. But fuck, you made me lose my train of thought there. No, so like because people talk about like why do you need that extra motivation in the national championship game? You're playing for a national title. I think like this is the longest season in college football history. It's a grind. Like these guys, like there's very few people who are healthy at this point. Like everyone's got something going on. Everyone's banged up. And you got 7 days to dig deep here and put your best foot forward. Anything that you can use to help you get to that point is certainly worthwhile. So I'm curious to see what that ends up being for Notre Dame.
Finding things to use. Thanks, Malik Zaire, for
I don't know what
bagging Will Howard.
This is like I need to figure out like what the lore is here because I've seen like stuff over the years, but like I don't know what this guy's deal is because this is not the first time he's done shit like this.
No, he's commented back at us once because I called him out once on something.
No, but I mean like in past years, like since he stopped playing college football, because I was always under the impression that he did not leave Notre Dame under the best of terms with how that quarterback. Do you remember when he was there? Like he was their starter in 2015. He had an incredible first game against Texas, and then he broke his ankle in game 2, and then Kaiser led them on that 10-2 season where they should have went 11-1. So then he comes back for 2016, and it was like a locker room divided because Kelly fucked around with the quarterback battle and didn't decide who he wanted to start, so he played a little bit of both. And it was like Kaiser was clearly the better option, but like half the locker room wanted Zaire, half the locker room wanted Kaiser, and that was part of the reason that they sucked ass in 2016. And then Kaiser went to the NFL. Zaire transferred to Florida. And I was just always under the impression that he did not leave on great terms and was just like not on great terms with the university. I don't know if that was like a Notre Dame thing or a Brian Kelly thing. But then he stops playing football and he goes into media, and all of a sudden he's like very prominently pro Notre Dame on Twitter, like aggressively so, as we are seeing. And he has done this before. And I think it rubs a lot of Notre Dame fans the wrong way. And I could have swore I saw something on a message board at some point that said like someone within the program like reached out to him and told him to stop.
They should.
Because it was pissing the program off. It's like, why are you running your mouth? Why?
Also, Will Howard has more passing yards in 3 games in the playoff than he had in his entire career. So
yeah, like what the fuck? It's just like
this. Also the quarterback who is, I know he threw a pick, but the quarterback that's been the most on fire in the college football playoff, you're now calling out.
The only thing that makes sense to me is he's trying to sabotage Notre Dame because he actually still doesn't like Notre Dame, but is pretending to. Like that's the only thing that makes sense to me.
Just love.
There's no reason.
He comments back to us. I'm going to ask him to come on the show and explain it.
I don't want him on the show. Because I will tell him to his face that he's a fucking moron. If you're an Ohio State fan listening to this, Notre Dame fans do not like Malik Zaire either.
Yeah, I read that and I'm like, dude, You know Will Howard's going to see that, and you know Ohio State's going to see that. Because Samuel Acho or Emmanuel Acho, whichever one of the Achos, said last week that Will Howard's the worst quarterback in the playoff. And I'm like, what has this poor guy done? Like, also, no, sorry, Jacob, Kyle McCord in the past 15 years, Will Howard is better than Kyle McCord. Like, I'm sorry. Whatever. But I was trying to think back how far 15 years goes, and there was a quarterback, Mr. Joe Bauserman, who lined up with Terrell Pryor.
Joe Bauserman!
Joe Bauserman
the old Craig Krenzel.
The worst Ohio State quarterback I've ever seen. Him and Boeckman lined up more directly with Pryor because Pryor was a freshman and Todd Boeckman was the starting quarterback of that season. And I don't know. It's popcorn, right?
Speaking of bad former quarterbacks, I saw something today that Tommy Rees is the favorite to be the New England Patriots offensive coordinator.
Oh my God!
Talk about failing up.
What about who's their head coach? Did they sign one?
They got Vrabel.
Okay, I've been off the grid, man. I've been on Twitter the last 2 days, really. Ever since Friday night, I've been playing in the snow, going to an Ohio State hockey game. Went to sports camp yesterday. Been too busy today. So, well, I figured that was coming. As soon as they fired Mayo, I knew it was Vrabel. Vrabel also knew he wasn't getting the Ohio State job because they didn't lose the first game to Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we have a chat right at the end of the show. Who we got?
I hope this is someone saying that they also don't like Malik Zaire. Justin Zwick!
Michael, yes. Justin Zwick was pretty rough, man.
I think we need to have like a late January or early February episode where we just stare at each other for 40 minutes and say former players who played on our favorite teams that are just like random off the wall.
Ray Small.
Matt Shelton.
Well, Justin Zwick, I'm going to game Michaels again.
Tom Zibikowski.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I don't know, dude. We could have a nice laundry list of that. But
all right.
No, I'm excited, man. I'm looking forward to having Jack. Hopefully we can get Spencer. Those will be our typical like little 30-minute episode, guys, where we just get these guys in and talk about the Natty. There's really no preview the season up to this point because we already did that with Jack. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the Natty and how they match up with Ohio State, and then if we get a Buckeye one on, vice versa, how they match up with Notre Dame and what the expectation is, and maybe where there can be advantages found for Notre Dame against Ohio State and so forth. I think initial game plan is preview show Sunday night, the night before the Natty, unless Mr. Satkoviak ends up going to Atlanta for the national championship, and then which we will have to do it before then.
A chance.
He will know, hopefully soon.
Well, I do not know yet. I need to text my father and figure out the situation.
If we do that, then we will pick a different night to do it.
Yes.
But it would be kind of cool.
I'll just call in from a bar in Atlanta.
There's
so many people here.
If he doesn't go to the game and then we do it on Sunday night, it would be kind of cool on the eve of the game to bitch and bicker at each other one more time.
Yeah, just our normal Sunday stuff.
Yeah. Certainly.
I will not go live after because I will either be crying tears of joy or tears of pain. And I don't want that on the internet.
Now we'll just do our normal Thursday next week for when you get back, if you go. Or we do a Wednesday night.
I mean, we could do it Tuesday.
Because you will give me 2 days to calm myself from my tears of sadness.
I usually play hockey on Tuesday, so I can't do Tuesday. So yeah, let's do Wednesday.
So then I could be still partying hard if Ohio State wins the Natty.
Yeah, whatever.
We'll see.
All right.
It'll be a fun one.
We go now. I have to go to bed. I'm tired. All right, guys. Thank you for joining in. Once again, this was Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football podcast. If you listened to us tonight on YouTube, thank you very much. If you are listening to us in the podcast feed, you can find us on YouTube at ITPCFB. That is the same place you can find us on Twitter, where you can interact with the show and catch all of our links so you'll never miss an episode. As always, please subscribe to the podcast feed, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. We are Inside the Pylon, a Midwest College Football podcast there. While you are there, please drop a star review and a rating. We would greatly appreciate it as it helps us grow the show.
Grow the show.
Heading into the first off season of Inside the Pylon. We are also going to need some content ideas. So if you want to rate the show, drop some ideas for episodes, things you want to hear, things you like, things you don't like. We would appreciate that as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll be back with you maybe Tuesday night, definitely Thursday night. But find us on Twitter and we'll let you know. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
See you. I was supposed to say keep it between the pylons.
Yeah, I said that really fast. I was flying there.